Having anticipated this perspective, I included the next article, which I think really addresses some of our key criticisms in the show.
Yep.
So this from the Wall Street Journal. Why a soft landing could prove elusive. Odds of the Fed reducing inflation without a recession have improved, but hazards loom. So I read this and it became really, really important for me to show the chart that's included in it. We'll get to that in a minute. On the eve of recessions in 1990, in 2001, and in 2007, many Wall Street economists proclaimed the U.S. was on the cusp of achieving this mythical unicorn of a soft landing, in which interest rates increases correlated inflation, corralled. I cannot read well tonight. I'm so worried about your health.
I could tell.
Interest rate increases corralled inflation without causing a recession. The chart, Arun, if you'll pull it up here. I found this particularly interesting because the chart was not what I was expecting from a traditional fiscal, or economic-based article. This is the number of Wall Street Journal articles that reference a soft landing. And you can see that
Dating
every
back
year.
to 1985.
1985. You can see that every year they've done this in some years way more than we've seen, but never at the back-to-back year cadence we've seen this particular time.
The only time they were successful was in the mid-90s, right there in 95.
And it's arguable that recession was probably one of the softest recessions anyway, compared to things like, 2001's fintech bubble burst or 2000. And the irony is in the 2007 range,
Yeah.
there were still articles, not a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
In what was the single largest recessionary event outside of the Great Depression in 1929.
You know why, right? Because they were probably saying, like, any hopes of a soft landing, throw it out the window.
Maybe. But Arun, close this and let's go to the other notes that I had here. There's some more data which I think was really, really interesting from a historical perspective. The 1969 moon landing propelled the soft landing expression into economic lingo as we know it today. In the early 1970s, Nixon and his administration officials sought to conquer high inflation without triggering a severe downturn, and they coined this phrase, which we've been using ever since. Since World War II, economists say the U.S. has achieved only one durable soft landing in 1995, the one that Saied was alluding to earlier.
Right.
We steered the economy very expertly, quoting from the article, but in addition, we were lucky. Nothing bad happened, said Alan Blinder, an economist who happens to have been the Fed vice chair from 1994 to 1996.
So to put things into perspective for the listeners, we went from a 0.25% interest rate a year and a half ago to now a year and a half later at 5.5%. In 1995, when they accomplished this, they were in May of 93, they were at 3%. By May of 94, they were at 4%.
Yeah.
Took them a year to only go 1%. A lot of holding and waiting and reading of data, right? They didn't raise interest rates at each FOMC meeting. By May of 1995, another year later, they got to 6%. So it went from 4 to 6, so 2% more. But they took a longer approach, a gradual approach.
And that's something, honestly, I am still stunned to this day why the FOMC has not clarified the approach they have taken to raise rates the way they have, which is deviated from every other single FOMC policy for every recessionary economy since then.
Right.
There is a chart in the article which Arun just pulled up, which kind of shows you the cumulative change in Fed funds rate since the start of the initial rate increases to now, and clearly the economy that we're in now has been the fastest overall aggregate cadence. I should also point out, when I did the Mind Pump episode, there was a lot of people who criticized me for saying this, that this has never been unprecedented.
The fastest cadence. Or
The fastest cadence. People were talking about going from this rate to that rate in the 70s and this rate to that rate in the 80s, and it was 25 basis points every single time consistently, or 50 basis points every single time consistently in those two periods of time. But they didn't understand the aggregate lift we got from the FOMC and the methodology where it went 25, 50, 75, 75, 75, 50, 25, wait, 25 more.